Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to episode 1 of the Gotham Chess Slow Run. Normally on YouTube, people are doing speedruns. They are trying to beat games as fast as possible. But in chess, that is not particularly effective, although it would look extremely impressive. And so in this series, I'm going to be playing 10-minute rapid games. I created a new account with permission from chess.com to go up the rating ladder starting at 400 ELO. And I hope that you get something out of this series. All right, I've done stuff like this in the past, but generally I try to play a specific opening, or I only play a few games at the same time, or I play my subscribers. I have a series, How to Win at Chess. It also inspired naming my book, which is up there, How to Win at Chess. But here we will purely climb up the rating ladder. We're going to try to learn a couple of things every single video, and we're going to have a great time. As a bonus, I will be uploading bonus episodes to my second channel. I will put it in the description, called Gotham Games, where usually you just get games from my live streams. Folks, here we go. This is episode 1. All right, it's going to be a whole playlist, maybe a little show on YouTube that we're going to do. I'm going to play with the white pieces. I'm going to boot up my very first slow run game, and I'm playing with the white pieces. Now, we are going to try to play good opening principles. I'm going to start with a pawn in the center. We will mix up the openings every now and then. My opponent is also playing in the center. If you are a beginner, generally, it is a good rule of thumb to put 2 pawns in the center if you can. This is the most common starting position at all levels of chess. About 60% of your games will go like this, and this is the next most popular move. It attacks the pawn in the center of the board. Now, my opponent is copying me. They are just doing the exact same thing that I am doing to them. Now, you do put this knight here to attack this pawn. At the high level, this is known as the Petrov defense. Okay. Do I defend my pawn, or do I implement the plan of my opening? I mean, honestly, either are good. I think since this is the very, very first game, I will indeed be grabbing this pawn. So my opponent can mirror me, and then what's interesting is we are playing an opening. An opening is something that you memorize before you play the game. It's an opening where you've memorized a few moves and you know what you're supposed to do. But in this case, I just followed principles. Like I went out with my knight, and I'm supposed to get my other knight into the middle of the board, and I'm supposed to develop my bishop to the middle. And in chess, the center is the most important thing. This is actually a very tricky move, Queen e7. So let's begin the chess thought process. First thing that you do when your opponent makes a move, what does that do? It attacks my knight. Do I have any move with my knight to capture a free piece? I can take a couple of pawns, but that really doesn't do anything. It just loses a knight. When you're under attack, I'm going to drop these little nuggets throughout the slow run. When you are under attack, you can do a few things. You can move the piece that's under attack. Very easy. Retreat. You can protect the piece with something that is less value, right? You can create a stronger threat. I don't have a stronger threat, so I can either move my knight back or protect it. You don't always have to move the piece that is under attack. So let's protect the knight. Now, the only reason this works, because I'm not being attacked by a pawn. I would not have protected my knight, which is worth 3 points, against the pawn that's worth 1. Knight takes pawn, okay? In the beginning of the game, you would like to develop your pieces and castle. This bishop can move a couple of different ways. I like this move because I just think it attacks the knight. So I develop a piece and I attack a knight. What more could I ask for? The knight can take my pawn, but then, okay, but that's not a good trade. Now, some of you might be going, oh, but then my king's going to be out in the open. Yes, but the chessboard, as I always like to say, again, nuggets of information throughout the slow run, a lot of nuggets. We're going to summarize these things at the end. The chessboard doesn't care how you feel. The best move is the best move. Taking a full knight, and by the way, if you don't take it, you will lose material, right? So taking a full knight has to be a good move. And now we won a knight. Our king is a little open, but it's okay. We won the knight, which is the good. Now we have to protect our king. Okay, so look, our knight is hanging. I did say protecting a piece is possible, but because this is worth 1 point versus 3, we should probably retreat. You do have a check. If you are watching this as a pure beginner, You might be wondering, isn't it a good idea to attack the king? It creates a stronger threat. Yes and no. We will analyze all of this afterward. In the meantime, I like retreating directly back to the home square. And now, since we are winning this game, we begin the process of converting the better position. Now, how do you know you have a better position? Material generally is the number one, especially at low level. We are up a knight. We have an extra knight. Black has an extra pawn. We have 6 pawns. Black has 7, but we have the extra knight. When you are up material, it's like having an extra attacker in a football match, right? It's a huge advantage, but it doesn't always mean you will convert things. So we have to see how we are going to actually make that work. One option is to trade down. We trade down the pieces like the queen, and then the less pieces that are on the board, the higher chance we have of winning. Another option is to use our material advantage to overwhelm our opponent. So all of those are possible. Now look at this position, right? Now, as a strong player, the first thing that comes to mind is I see a queen and a king lined up in the center of the board, and the best way to punish that is with your rook. The rook should slide over to the middle, somewhere in the middle of the game, and attack what's in the center. Now, we also haven't developed our knight. So I think as a beginner, the correct thing to do is to develop the knight into the middle of the board, which now, as a benefit of this knight, just as well, attacks the pawn. The best move for black here would be to defend the pawn, probably by developing the bishop, because again, you want to develop your knights and bishops into the center of the board during a chess game. So likely, developing the bishop is good. And that's exactly what they do. So now, I would like to finish my development too. Any one of these bishop moves is good, and you will notice I'm not giving a check, I'm not doing this. In general, it is a good idea to not move pieces multiple times. I did do that because I was under attack with my knight. Look, this is good, this is good. Let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. So I'm attacking a piece that is worth 9, the most powerful piece on the board, with a piece that's worth 3, but I'm only able to do this because my bishop is protected. Otherwise, the queen would just take the bishop immediately. You have to be very careful when you attack pieces that have the same power, because both of those pieces, for example, if I went bishop f4, I would just lose the bishop. Now, queen goes here. I immediately ask myself, what is it doing? It sees this way. But that's protected, so I'm fine. It sees over here and over here, but I'm fine. So what do I do? What do you do in a chess game? Like, how do you... Well, you can still stick to good principles. And the principles are, we got our knights and bishops out, but we haven't gotten our rook and queen out. So let's centralize the rook. The rook is better here, and of course our king would like to be tucked away as if he castled. This is actually something called castling by hand, because you have to manually walk the king there by hand. We only had to do this because our opponent got our king to move early. Getting the king to move early is not an advantage if it costs you a knight. Now, if the king is walking across the tundra for no reason, like this king just went for a walk, that would be terrible. But if I gave my opponent a piece, well, then it becomes potentially worthwhile to capture the piece and go for a walk. Now, again, going to sprinkle all sorts of stuff. Might feel overwhelming, but I will summarize things with an analysis at the end. That's the thing about the slow run. We're going to do 1 game per video, maximum 2. Going to be a long, long show. Now look, at 400, people are still good. 380 is actually my opponent's exact rating. 380. I know it says 400, but I'm estimating, right? I'm estimating based on the name tag. I did this to protect people's identity, because when I play people, they might get messaged by other people. They might get, but that's why I did that. So that is the point. Now, there might also be a setting where I can disable game result board animations. I wonder if I can do that so that I don't even show my opponent's name afterward. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe, if anything, I just edit it out. I'm just doing this to make sure folks' usernames are not leaked. My opponent went bishop to e7. Okay, the bishops see each other. Very simple formula, folks. To trade or not to trade pieces. Am I up material? Yes, I'm up a knight. Generally speaking, it's going to be a completely harmless decision. to trade pieces of equal value. Trading pieces is like a whole chapter of my first book, How to Win at Chess. It's not so simple, but in this case, more often than not, it will be a completely reasonable thing to do. Now, my opponent took with the queen. At this point, I have something which is called a tactic. I see a bishop, a queen, and a king in the center of the board. That opens up possibilities because these pieces are what's called pinned. The bishop is pinned to the queen, which means the bishop is not actually protecting this pawn anymore. Can a 400 spot this? Hopefully after watching the slow run. Right? This is a ghost defense. My rook was put here to put pressure. And a free pawn is a free pawn. It's a free pawn. So the queen is now under attack. And my knight also has eyes on the pawn. One thing I urge you to do is to think of pieces as having eyes. They can see things. They can see empty squares like this. They can see physical pieces like this. That's a great move. Now that my knight is threatened. So remember, I can protect my knight or I can retreat it. I'm going to protect it. I'm protecting my knight with a pawn. Again, we are implementing the same game. Could I have gone back? Of course. Now, I think my opponent should actually castle. They have waited a very long time to castle. Okay, they play knight a6. Again, is that move attacking something? No. So now I have to think, like, I want to push the pawn, but my pawn is defending the knight. Well, you know, let's try to exploit this pin and also the clock. This is a missing piece about all this. The clock is also a piece, right? We can exploit the pin a little bit more, but we also haven't gotten our queen into the game yet. So why don't I go over here with my queen? And look, I'm attacking a very juicy pawn. So I could have gone here, but my pawn is defending my knight. A lot of people forget that. The continuity, the pawn was put there to defend the knight. That's the job that it's doing. Could I have walked my king to safety? For sure. It's very normal in a chess game that there isn't just one best move. There could be two best moves or 7 best moves, you know? So I went queen b3. Now my opponent could castle. They still have not castled. That is the one thing that black is not doing, and that's actually causing them the major problems in this game is that now they castle, right? But I can maybe take this pawn. Okay, if I take this pawn, we're going to analyze a little bit afterward if that's a good move or not. Let's just see. Can we fall into the trap? We took a pawn, right? Now, rook b8 looks like it traps my queen. In fact, both rook moves. Yeah, I mean, very good by my opponent. Excellent, like, spotting here. And honestly, yeah, almost. Now, here I have to get super creative. So my queen is trapped. I would like to take the knight, but I do have this cool tactical move. Again, we're getting really deep in the weeds here a little bit. I've got sort of tactics spread out here. But I have this move, knight e7 check, which is kind of a crazy move, you know? And again, this is all, it's all part of the process. Some people don't like that I always play the best moves, but I'm trying to win the games, you know? I'm trying not to lose. So, and that is part of it. Okay, we're up material. I've talked about this. We can trade the queens. Now we take a moment to pause. Black is attacking one of our pieces. A lot of people just forget to do this. A lot of people just go, bishop is hanging. I attack the bishop. But right now, rook takes pawn is the best move. And I played the worst move, you know, because a lot of people would go, oh, I'm attacking the bishop. Yes, but you have to respect your opponent's pieces as well. I have a feeling my opponent will move the bishop, but I don't know. Even if, okay, you see? Now watch this. Rook attacks bishop. You think my opponent will spot rook takes pawn? A lot of people get preoccupied with and there you go, right? Now, I'm going to make another move. I'm giving my opponent 4 chances to see rook takes pawn. Will they spot it? You always got to do, like, you got to draw and they don't spot it. They panic. And unfortunately, now I take the bishop, which they just move from there, right? So people are, they just forget. They forget that certain pieces have vision, you know, and that they just get locked in on one piece. Now, we're in what's called the endgame now, okay? And in the endgame, like this, obviously you still want to not lose any pieces. You want to make sure everything is protected. But in an endgame with rooks, pawns, maybe a knight, maybe a bishop, the more pawns that you win, the higher chance you're going to promote a queen. And generally speaking, that is the objective, to bring the queen or even two queens back to life. Another thing about rooks, I mean, you're learning like 10 things in this video. If you even remember one or two, I will be very happy. The other thing about rooks, we can trade. We already know this. We know this. Trading is good. Now we start pushing pawns. Rooks like to team up together. They like to be on the same right to left, or they like to be on the same up and down, straight away, right? In this case, though, I'm sticking to the principle that I'm up material and trading is good. And I've done that about 4 times this game. We just push. We just push. I'm not running around chasing every single pawn. I've identified my 2 pawns here. Look, I want to push this pawn, but I can't. So I advance my rook 1 square, and I am going to push both of my pawns together and promote. Another benefit here is that my rook is completely cutting off the king on the last rank of the board. So whatever your level is, if you're watching this as a 1500 for some reason, there is still something you can learn about endgame conversion. Of course, I'm going to push my pawn. Now, I have to be a little careful how I do this. There's a few ways. When your pawn is defending your rook, you can check on the last rank and promote the pawn. You can also remove the rook as a defender of the promotion square. Both are completely fine. You can also go defend with your pawn. But generally, one rook alone cannot stop a pawn from promoting. So now I queen. And so now it's going to cost black a full rook. Or they will resign. I'm not sure. But of course, I do not recommend resigning at 400. Anything can happen. People can stalemate you. Which is when you get, okay, I mean, taking my queen probably would have been better. I don't think leaving my queen on the board is the solution here. And check was also fine. Again, this is one of these positions. 85 different moves are good. Don't stress. Bring the queen over here, and your queen and your rook together will deliver a checkmate like this. Okay? So that was, I'm very happy with that game. I mean, obviously. Now we analyze. We boot up the analysis board, and we go back to the very beginning. And this is how we are going to do the slow run. We are also going to update our record. 1 win. Now our rating is something like 410. Like I said, I'm going to upload a couple of videos in every single rating bracket, like 400 or 500. But on the second channel, on Gotham Games, which I will link in the description, you will have some more bonus episodes, okay? Bonus content. So you can watch on both channels. I just did not want to flood the main channel with all of the videos of the slow run. So e4, e5. I don't really care which center pawn you start with. You can start with the queen's pawn, and you can play a London system. Like, you can play any different openings, right? But most people are going to play like this. Knight to f3. The most common move you will face here is the defense of the pawn. Notice the board changed to a different color because we are now analyzing. And now, again, you can play in the center. You can play with your knight, and those are the most common moves. But our opponent went here, which allowed us to take a free pawn. So we did. And now our knight was attacked. And I mentioned how you can move the piece that is under attack, or you can protect it, provided that it's a lower value than the attacking piece, and the queen is the most powerful. So I went here, and if d6, little instructive moment, I did say one of the ways that you can get out of a threat is by creating a stronger threat, right? I said that. Here's the problem. If you get out of a threat by creating another threat against your opponent, like a check, this is a very short-sighted move, because after this move, you now have a knight hanging and a bishop hanging. So be very careful. that when you try to Uno reverse them, you don't get reversed right back, okay? They went here. Now, we have a lot of moves in this position, a lot of moves. But stick to the principles. Develop and castle. We developed. Had the opponent played a move like pawn to d5, I would have castled here in a heartbeat. I would have castled in a heartbeat. But they went here. They gave us a knight, so I took it. Now, the benefit is we are up a knight. The drawback is our king is a little open. Probably the best move here for black is to try to immediately hunt our king. And it's actually very dangerous for us. Very dangerous. For example, you could accidentally block the check and walk into a fork. They just took a pawn and they're attacking the knight. And it's still winning, but it's only winning because we have ideas like this, where the queen and the king are on the same line. That is the danger of leaving your king in the center of the board for too long. And the thing when you analyze your games and the computer showing you, you are winning +3, it's only +3 if you spot it. If you don't spot it, you have no idea that it's +3. An experienced player does because it's all about pattern recognition. But in this game, they attacked our knight. Again, I didn't give a check because I didn't want to get blocked with the lowest value piece, so I went back. And now I took a very simple strategy. I want to develop my knight, my bishop, and my rook. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just putting the pieces that the chess gods have granted me for the game into the center of the board. Could I have gone here, here, or here with the bishop? Yes, of course. Now I brought my rook. Great. My opponent offered a trade of bishops. I'm winning, so I'm happy to do that. Now, would a 400 rated player have spotted the move knight takes pawn? No, maybe not. But you know what you do here? You bring your queen and your other rook. You make a small improving move. Improving move. That is going to come up a lot in the slow run. A move that doesn't do something completely crazy, that doesn't rush in. And by far the most important thing that's going to get you out of 400 up to 1,000 is one movers. Stop making one move mistakes. Stop making one move mistakes. A one move mistake is a move where you simply give up a piece. You give up a piece completely. You just play a move that blunders a piece. I'm going to give you an example. My opponent actually played a great game. A great game. But then there was this moment right here. They just gave up a bishop in one move. Now, granted, they were under pressure and they did not spot this one mover, right? The one mover, the piece takes piece, or piece is given up to another piece. And I would also like to draw your attention to this moment right here. This is a very instructive moment. You go here to attack a pawn and you take a free pawn, and all of a sudden your opponent plays the move rook b8. The queen is trapped. You have no moves. Your queen is under threat. It cannot go here, it cannot go here, it cannot go here because it's going to get taken. What do you do? Well, during the game, what I did is I created a stronger threat. The only thing more powerful than a queen is a king. And I wanted my queen to escape this way. That is why I went knight to e7, because my queen, otherwise I'm going to lose my queen. So I was like, wait, hey, I can get my queen out, but first I need to go knight to e7 check. This is high level stuff, but this is for the 4-digit folks that are still 20 minutes into this video. And this move also puts too much pressure on the queen because this queen is holding this knight. So if takes, which is what happened in the game, I managed to get out by taking the knight back. But the other idea was to get my queen here. And the queen and the bishop create what's called a battery, operating together, defending each other, propelling each other, and that's actually a checkmate. And this is why you need to always realize that your pieces have eyeballs. It kind of helps when you click legal moves like this. It kind of helps when you, I guess the game is over, so it's not showing me the legal moves anymore, but it would draw the little arrows for you. Now, What I actually think would have happened here in a real 400 game is probably white would have lost. White would have definitely lost the queen. There are other ideas like the move pawn to c5. It is a mistake, as you can see, but the idea of pawn to c5 is my queen is hanging, I attack your queen. That's a very, very reasonable move. And if queen takes, you trade queens and you pick up the free knight. But the move pawn to c5, as you can see, black is now winning, doesn't quite work because the knight can sacrifice itself and then the queen would be checking the king. This is what's called a tactical sequence. This is far above 400. You're not supposed to see this as a 400. Frankly speaking, I'm not sure you're supposed to see this as a 1000. Most 1000s would be spooked about their queen and they would make a mistake. The point of the analysis, I just want you to understand, if you've made it 25 minutes and you've enjoyed the first episode of the slow run, the point of all of this, why am I doing all this? This is not a video for 400 rated players. The point of the slow run is to educate a 400 how they should play the game of chess. Going for the middle, trading pieces when you're winning, material generally decides who has a better position. But stuff like knight to e7, c5, knight c5, and how to properly analyze a position and get out of danger, that's for the intermediates. And there were many of motifs and examples in this very first game that even an intermediate and an early advanced player could learn from. So that concludes episode 1. Kindly leave your feedback in the comments for things you enjoyed, things you didn't enjoy, things you would like me to do for future episodes. In all likelihood, from 400 to 2,000, I don't know what the ultimate goal is of the slow run, but if it's going to be 50 to 100 episodes, I'd like for you to learn different things. In this game, we played a symmetrical knight opening. We took a pawn. At high level, this is known as the Petrov defense. It's one of the most common openings in chess, but we're 400. So that's all I have for you today. And yeah, tune in for episode 2 of the slow run. Bonus content will be on Gotham Games as we keep going up in the episodes. And I have tons of other content on this channel for you to enjoy. Get out of here.